Alrighty, so one big video I wanted to do for the MBTI community, I think is extremely important, and it's about how to properly type yourself. Okay, and this is very key because I've noticed that there's been a lot of mixed information, a lot of negative information in regards to the MBTI that have come from the scientific community, that have come from a bunch of people within the community about the validity of MBTI. Now, let me tell you, MBTI is a very powerful psychological tool, and uh, it's very accurate. Okay, from a scientific level. One key thing that I learned that was huge that proved MBTI was very valid was understanding universal law. And so, me also being a spiritual teacher, I think it's important that people learn about universal law because when you learn about universal law, okay, beyond the laws in the just the government or whatever nation you're in, because when it comes to the laws, I mean, come on. At one point, it was legal to hang people on a cross, to hang people on a tree. At one point, it was legal to be racist. At one point, it was legal to do a lot of negative things. When we talk about universal law, these laws are indisputable. These laws are tied to universal principles that are proven. Give you some examples. Certain laws like the law of gender. You can't really argue that because there's male and female. That's what the law of gender says. There's male and female energy. Who's going to argue that when literally when you look outside, I'm a guy and there's women? There is no third or fourth. Of course, there's other forms of genders now and things like that, but they're all based in there being a man and a woman. Okay, that's where creation centers from. So that's one universal law. Another universal law, polarity, meaning there's opposites. You know what I mean? That's another law. So when we understand a law like polarity, for example, right, in the sense that there are opposites, two polar ends. You have hot, you have cold. Even male and female, right? You have night, you have day. You have the sun, you have the moon. So when we talk about MBTI, this is what Carl Jung's principles were founded on. And it was founded on the idea that we take these universal laws and these principles and we use them for the mind. So you have thinking, you have feeling, you have sensing, you have intuition. So these work together, and I'm going to do a video soon on the four elements and all of that good stuff. It's going to get really nice. But with that being said, when we talk about typing yourself, it's important that when you type yourself, you have to be very objective. Okay? And that's the big problem I've seen with the scientific community and different communities saying that MBTI is invalid. They say this mainly because they don't know how to type themselves or type other people. Now, there are some people that are so good with MBTI, not to toot my own horn, but like myself, where I could type people very quickly, right? And then I'll talk to them and it will be so accurate. I can literally, I might do this is actually get a MBTI reading or MBTI session that I do, consultation with a lot of different people, where literally we talk very shortly. I ask some quick questions, find out their type quickly, then break it down. And they're literally like, oh my gosh, that's me. Okay? Now, what allows me to do that? The problem I've seen with typing yourself is that when people type themselves, they mess up in a few areas. One of the areas is they type themselves the way that they like to be. So, for example, let's say one of the questions do you have a lot of ideas or are you more focused generally on one idea? Say some questions like that. They might be trying to figure out, are you really intuitive or are you more of a sensor, right? And you might say, well, I have a lot of ideas, but I'm focused. I see myself as a very focused and, motivated person. But the problem is you're not answering the question based on your default self. You're answering it based on what you like to be, what you desire to be. You know what I mean? And that's where people mess up. You have to answer the questions as your default self. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, you're going to do a lot of projection. So you'll really be an ESTP, but because you're trying to feel like, or you might be in a stage where you're self-actualizing or growing, so you're like, well, I'm mature now, and I've grown up now, and now I like to do things on time. You might test that as an ESFJ or ESTJ. when really you're an ESTP because you don't talk because you didn't discuss that. Oh, when I was 18, I used to always be late or I would never be on time. You're thinking about how you are now. Another example, let's say me, I'm a person who likes to be self-actualized, who likes to grow. So let's say someone asks me, are you somebody with your head in the clouds or do you like to take life one day at a time? Right? And I might say, well, I like to take life one day at a time at this point in my life. Like I like to be focused. But I got to remember, how was I when I was younger? How was I before I learned and developed myself? What am I at my base level? And I was, in that regard, I'd say, well, yeah, I do like to keep my head in the clouds. When I was younger, I had a bunch of ideas. I was always coming up with ideas. So that is the way you want to answer the questions. You want to answer them based on your default self. Okay? Now, here's another issue with the way people type themselves. A lot of types are not feeling dominant, meaning that a lot of types, like INTPs, for example, feeling is literally their lowest function. Like extroverted feeling is their fourth function, introverted feeling is their eighth function. Now, when we start talking about our personal selves, introverted feeling is very tied to that. And then for those types that don't have introverted feeling as high, at least extroverted feeling allows you to see how other people's feelings are. And that gives you a reflection of how you may be. But if you're a type that is, your awareness really isn't focused on your feelings or how you are in that capacity, you're not going to really know how you really are. You might be a little bit disconnected from how you are as a type. Or you might be a little bit disconnected on certain aspects about yourself because most of your ideas are focused on your projects or on other things that you're working on. So it is good as well to work with someone that may do typing or that may be able to observe you. Or you might want to take the test and ask someone, hey, bro, what do you think about me in this regard? Am I more playful? This is the more proper way to go about taking the test because you're not just answering quick questions based on how you project yourself to be. When you're taking the MBTI test, you have to be very honest. You have to be very real with yourself, very objective. And that's very important because if you aren't objective and if you're more so subjective while taking the test, you're going to come up with subjective answers. You have to be objective, very objective. And so that either may require you to ask somebody to be completely honest while taking the test, how am I in these ways? When you do have questions about because some of the questions, it can go either way, so it's kind of hard. And then also, you want to tap into that FI, into those feeling components that are going to give you the understanding of generally, how am I? Because you got to remember, logic and thinking is just tied to structure. Feeling is more so dealing with the human, meaning you as a human or other people as a human or animals or whatever, you're connecting to them through things like being sympathetic, things like empathy. These are the things that will help you look at yourself. When they ask you, are you the type of person that is more playful or are you more serious? If you're focused on, say you're an engineer, you're a builder, you're like, I don't know, like, I don't know, I might be both, I don't know. So that's where you want to dig a little deeper and say, okay, let me look at my past experiences. What have I generally shown to the world? You know what I mean? Or that's maybe where you want to ask someone. So my main point is saying, when you're taking the test, okay, if you really want to get the most out of the test, okay, because the test is very powerful, what you want to do is answer the questions very honestly, very objectively, very and based on your default self, meaning the version of yourself as you naturally are before you improve and do different things or degenerate, whatever. You know what I mean? The idea is answering the questions based on your default self. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, I definitely suggest if you do know any people that are very, very well versed in MBTI, definitely seek that consulting. I think it's important that we have therapists, psychologists, different things. As you know, I'm a psychologist. I went to school of psychology, sociology, and I'm continuing to do things with my MBA, all these different things. But the main thing is you want to seek out that help. And I offer MBTI consultations. I do MBTI workshops. So it's important that you do seek out those people because once you do know your personality type, there's only 16. Once you know your one personality type out of the 16, from there, there's endless amounts of growth that you can tap into in learning of self that you can tap into because you now know your type. So don't miss out on that experience just because you feel like, oh, that doesn't describe me or that's not my type. that the type that you tested as very well might not be your type. And it's important that you seek the help around you and that you're very objective and honest with yourself so that you do know your type. Because as I said, once you do, sky's the limit. All right. So that being said, that's my talk on how to type yourself. You know what I mean? It's important that you type yourself correctly. And if you need any help, let me know. Email me at godjohnny.speaks.com. You can go on godjohnny.com and I can get you an MBTI reading. And trust me, when I do my readings with people about their type, it's no joke. Like, we hit it on the nail. All right. So that being said, I hope you learned a lot. Type yourself correctly, and don't be sitting here talking trash about MBTI just because you don't know yourself. You know what I mean? That's the whole point of the tool. Know thyself. I'll talk to you soon.